The research complex stretched like a massive crystal flower against the dark backdrop of space. Its many-layered halls twisted and turned, filled with sounds that most humans would find strange. Clicks, whistles, low rumbles, and high-pitched frequencies that seemed to dance between spoken language and pure noise. Eun-ji Park moved through these halls like a shadow. Her simple gray jumpsuit blended perfectly with the metallic walls, making her almost invisible to the other researchers. She carried a standard data pad, her fingers moving quickly and quietly as she logged information, collected samples, and processed data that nobody else seemed to care about. Around her, researchers from 100 different planets worked busily. A crystalline being with sharp geometric edges carefully manipulated holographic displays. Nearby, a creature that looked like a mass of moving tentacles arranged intricate chemical compounds. Another researcher, a being made entirely of what seemed like living light, communicated through rapid color changes. And there was Eun-ji, just a human, always overlooked, always watching. Her current assignment was mundane, cataloging micro-variations in radiation levels across different research sectors. It was the kind of work that most senior researchers considered boring and unimportant. But Eun-ji was different. Where others saw boring data, she saw patterns. Where others saw routine, she saw potential. Today was like most days. She moved between research stations, her data pad capturing information that seemed random to others, but made perfect sense in her carefully organized mind. Her supervisor, Krelvax, a massive being covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with every movement, rarely looked at her directly. When he did speak to her, it was with a tone that suggested humans were barely more advanced than simple laboratory tools. Collect the samples, Krelvax would say. Log the data. Do not ask questions. And Eun-ji would nod. She would do exactly as told. But her mind was always working, always analyzing, always thinking beyond the simple instructions. The research complex was home to the Galactic Scientific Consortium, the most advanced scientific organization in known space. Researchers from thousands of planets worked here, sharing knowledge, conducting experiments, and pushing the boundaries of understanding. Except when it came to humans. Humans were still considered newcomers, primitive, unimportant. No one knew that Eun-ji was quietly building something big. Her workstation was simple, a small desk in a corner, surrounded by larger and more elaborate stations used by other researchers. Her computer terminal looked standard, nothing special. But looks could be deceiving. Behind its ordinary interface, Eun-ji had built complex programs that could analyze data in ways no one else had imagined. She adjusted her standard-issue glasses and continued working. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her movements were precise, her focus complete. To anyone watching, she was just another junior researcher doing routine work. But Eun-ji was gathering information, collecting data, watching, learning. And nobody noticed. Not yet. End of part 1. The digital display in Eun-ji's small living quarters flickered softly. Hundreds of data points danced across multiple screens, each one carefully sorted and analyzed. Where others saw random numbers and graphs, Eun-ji saw stories, connections, secrets waiting to be discovered. She had been working for 18 consecutive hours. Her small pot of earth coffee, a rare and expensive luxury in the research complex, sat half empty and cold. Most alien researchers didn't understand humans' relationship with caffeine. They saw it as a primitive stimulant. Eun-ji saw it as her secret weapon. The current project looked simple on the surface. Radiation level tracking across different research sectors. Basic scientific monitoring that most researchers would complete and forget. But Eun-ji was different. She collected every single data point. She remembered every single number. Her personal database was not just a collection of information. It was a living, breathing network of connections. Each data point was like a puzzle piece. Most researchers looked at individual pieces. Eun-ji was building the entire picture. A notification pinged. Another routine report from the Quantum Communication Network. Most researchers would have glanced and ignored it. But Eunji's fingers moved quickly. She compared this report with hundreds of previous reports. Something was not right. Microscopic variations, so small that they would be invisible to most monitoring systems, but they were there. Tiny changes in signal strength, subtle shifts in communication patterns. Most would call them random errors. Eunji knew better. She pulled up historical data. Months of records. Years of records. The variations were not random. They followed a pattern that nobody else had noticed. Her personal AI assistant, a simple program she had designed herself, began running complex analysis models. Most research AIs in the complex were massive, expensive systems. Eunji's was small, efficient, and incredibly smart. Analysis complete, the AI announced in a soft voice. The results were interesting. The Quantum Communication Network had weaknesses, not big weaknesses, not the kind that would make headlines, but small, critical points where the entire system could potentially be disrupted. Eunji leaned back in her chair. Most researchers would have reported this as a minor technical observation. She knew better. This was more than a technical issue. This was a potential strategic vulnerability. Outside her window, the vast darkness of space stretched endlessly. Countless alien ships moved like tiny dots of light, each one relying on the same communication networks. Networks with hidden weaknesses. She started writing her report. Simple language, clear observations, nothing that would draw too much attention. Just another routine report from a junior human researcher. Her supervisor, Krelvax, would probably not even read it carefully. Humans were still seen as newcomers, primitive, unimportant. But Eunji was building something big. The report was finished, submitted through the standard channels. To anyone else, it would look like another boring technical document. Eunji smiled. Sometimes, the most important discoveries look the most boring. Nobody noticed the human girl. Not yet. End of part 2. The research complex was buzzing with tension. Something was happening in the galaxy. Everyone could feel it. Eunji sat in the large conference room, positioned at the very back. Her chair was small. Her presence was smaller. Around her, senior researchers from dozens of alien species discussed growing conflicts between major galactic powers. A holographic display showed a complex map of star systems. Red and blue zones marked areas of increasing military activity. Tension lines stretched between different galactic regions like tight wires ready to snap. The Crystalline Confederacy was moving troops near the Plasma Collective's border systems. Ancient rivalries were heating up. Old wounds were reopening. War seemed possible, maybe even likely. Most researchers were focused on the military movements, troop positions, ship numbers, weapon capabilities. But Eunji was looking at something different. She was watching the technology. Her datapad recorded everything, not just the obvious information. She captured the small details, communication patterns, energy signatures, technological infrastructure connections. Nobody noticed her in the corner. Her gray jumpsuit made her blend perfectly with the room's neutral walls. Her dark hair was pulled back. Her eyes moved quickly, collecting information faster than anyone realized. The military buildup is significant, said Krelvax, her supervisor. His scale-covered body shifted colors as he spoke. But our primary concern is maintaining scientific neutrality. Other researchers nodded. They believed in pure research, staying away from political conflicts, staying safe, staying neutral. Eunji knew better. Technological systems were never truly neutral. Every system had weaknesses. Every network had exploit points. Her personal research was revealing something extraordinary. The communication networks used by these advanced civilizations had fundamental vulnerabilities. Not big holes, not obvious problems, but small critical points where entire systems could potentially collapse. She had mapped these vulnerabilities carefully. Each point was like a tiny weakness in a complex machine. Individually, they seemed unimportant. Together, they could become something powerful. The conference continued. Researchers discussed potential diplomatic solutions. They talked about peace negotiations. They talked about avoiding conflict. Yunji kept working. Her fingers moved silently across her datapad. She was building something that nobody understood yet. Her AI assistant, a small program she had designed, continued running background analyses. It was gathering information from multiple sources, connecting dots that no one else could see. Outside the conference room, massive research ships moved between star systems. Alien vessels of incredible design and complexity, each one a marvel of engineering, each one potentially vulnerable. Yunji's research was showing how, not through brute force, not through massive attacks, but through precise, strategic interventions. The meeting ended. Researchers began leaving. Krelvax barely glanced at Yunji. "File your standard reports," he said without looking at her. She nodded. Her reports would look completely normal, boring, routine. But beneath the simple language in standard format, something important was growing. A strategy. A plan. Nobody noticed the human girl. Not yet. End of part 3. The small living quarters felt different tonight. Most would see just another basic research station room. But Yunji knew better. Her workspace was a carefully designed system of technological potential. Her personal workstation looked ordinary, a standard computer terminal with basic research interfaces. To anyone walking by, it seemed like just another piece of equipment. But underneath its simple exterior, something extraordinary was happening. Yunji's fingers moved across the keyboard. Lines of code appeared and disappeared. Most alien researchers would not understand her programming language. It was a custom system she had developed, part human logic, part adaptive algorithm, part pure creativity. The room was quiet. Outside her small window, distant stars moved slowly across the black space. Alien research ships passed by, their lights blinking like distant fireflies. Nobody knew what was happening inside this small room. She was building something big, not a weapon, not a traditional attack system, something far more sophisticated. Her algorithms were designed to find weaknesses, not just in computer systems, in entire technological infrastructures. She mapped communication networks. She tracked energy signatures. She understood how complex systems connected and depended on each other. The Crystalline Confederacy had the most advanced defense systems in the known galaxy. Layers of quantum shields, complex communication networks, artificial intelligence systems that could predict and counter most threats. Most would see these systems as unbreakable. Yunji saw them as puzzles waiting to be solved. Her personal AI assistant continued running background checks, collecting data, analyzing patterns. Most AI systems were large and complicated. Hers was small, efficient, and incredibly smart. Analysis progress, the AI said softly. 78% complete. Yunji smiled. Most researchers would be sleeping now, resting, waiting for another standard day of work. She was different. Every minute was an opportunity to learn, to understand, to prepare. Her research had shown something important. Advanced technological systems always had weaknesses, not big holes, not obvious problems, but small critical points where entire networks could potentially collapse. She was mapping these points carefully. Each vulnerability was like a tiny crack in a complex machine. Individually, they seemed unimportant. Together, they could become something powerful. The Plasma Collective had its own defense systems, different from the Crystalline Confederacy, but similar in one key way. They all had hidden weaknesses. Yunji's computer continued working. Simulations ran in the background. Potential scenarios played out in digital space. Most would see random data. She saw a complete picture. Her supervisor, Krelvax, would never understand this. To him, she was just a junior human researcher. someone to file routine reports, someone to collect basic data. But Eunji was building something that could change everything. Outside, another research ship passed by. Its lights blinked in the darkness. Inside her small room, Eunji continued working. Nobody noticed the human girl. Not yet. End of part 4. Space looked different when war was coming. The darkness felt heavier. The stars seemed colder. Massive battleships from the Crystalline Confederacy moved into position. Their geometric shapes cut through space like massive crystal blades. On the other side, plasma collective ships formed defensive lines. Energy pulses danced between ship formations, like lightning trapped in a bottle. In the research complex, everything changed. The usual calm disappeared. Researchers moved faster. Talks became urgent. Tensions grew with each passing hour. Eunji watched everything. She recorded everything. Her small workstation became a hub of silent activity. While other researchers talked about war, she studied something different. Not troop movements, not weapon systems. She studied the technology that connected everything. Communication networks, energy transfer systems, artificial intelligence infrastructure. Most researchers saw these as separate things. Eunji saw them as one big connected system, a system with hidden weaknesses. Conflict probability, her AI assistant announced, is now at 92.7%. Nobody paid attention to her. Krelvax walked past her workstation without looking. Other researchers continued their urgent discussions. Holographic displays showed battle formations. Military strategists discussed attack plans. But Eunji was building something different, a way to stop the conflict, not through traditional methods, not through diplomacy or weapons, through technology. Her computer continued running simulations. Thousands of potential scenarios played out in digital space. Most would see random data. She saw a complete picture. The Crystalline Confederacy had incredible defense systems, quantum shields that could stop most attacks, complex communication networks that could predict enemy movements, artificial intelligence that could make split-second decisions. The Plasma Collective was similar, different technology, same basic structure, same hidden weaknesses. Eunji had spent months mapping these weaknesses, not big holes, not obvious problems, small critical points where entire systems could potentially collapse. Outside, the first energy weapons fired. Massive beams of destructive power cut through space. Ships exploded. Entire planetary systems were at risk. Inside the research complex, most researchers watched in fear, some in excitement, some in professional interest. Eunji watched differently. She saw the technology, the connections, the potential. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. Lines of code appeared and disappeared. A custom system she had developed. Part human creativity, part pure mathematical logic. The AI assistant continued its work. Vulnerability mapping, it said softly, 98.3% complete. War was coming. Everyone could feel it. Ships moved, weapons charged, entire civilizations prepared for massive conflict. But Eunji was preparing something else, a different kind of weapon. Not a traditional weapon. Something far more powerful. Her small workstation hummed softly. Lines of code continued to flow. Simulations ran in the background. Outside, another battleship exploded. Energy waves spread across the dark space. Nobody noticed the human girl. Not yet. End of part 5. The moment arrived silently. Most would expect a big explosion, a loud sound, something dramatic. But technology dies quietly, like a candle going out. Eunji's fingers touched her keyboard. One simple command. Months of preparation compressed into a single moment. Across the galaxy, complex systems began to fail. Not all at once. Not in a way that looked planned. Just small, tiny failures that grew and spread like a disease. The Crystalline Confederacy's quantum communication network was the first to show problems. Shield generators flickered. Communication channels became unstable. Artificial intelligence systems started to produce strange, broken responses. On the massive battleships, screens went dark. Pilots looked confused. Military commanders tried to understand what was happening. Nothing seemed to work right. Energy weapons that should have fired perfectly now produced weak, unpredictable pulses. Navigation systems gave wrong coordinates. Quantum encryption began to break down. The Plasma Collective experienced similar issues. Their advanced technology started to fail in small, critical ways. Computer systems became unreliable. Defense networks showed unexpected vulnerabilities. No one could see the source of the problem. It wasn't a traditional attack. No enemy ships were nearby. No obvious virus had entered the systems. Just a series of tiny, precise technological failures. Yunji watched her screens. Her small workstation continued running calculations. The AI assistant processed data faster than any normal computer could. System disruption, the AI said softly. 73.6% complete. In the research complex, other researchers started to notice something was wrong. Krellvax looked worried. Communication channels between different research stations became unstable. But Yunji remained calm. She had planned this carefully. Every single step was calculated. Every single vulnerability had been studied for months. Battleships that should have been powerful weapons now drifted helplessly. Their complex systems failed one by one. Shield generators collapsed. Communication networks went silent. Navigation systems produced nonsense data. It wasn't destruction. It was something more sophisticated. A complete technological paralysis. The Crystalline Confederacy's most advanced ships became nothing more than large, floating metal boxes. The Plasma Collective's weapon systems became useless collections of complex hardware. No weapons had been fired. No traditional attack had happened. Yet entire military systems were now completely disabled. Yunji continued working. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. More commands, more precise interventions. She wasn't destroying technology. She was showing how fragile it could be, how a few carefully placed changes could collapse entire systems. The research complex around her became chaotic. Researchers ran back and forth. Communication systems failed. Nobody understood what was happening. Her supervisor looked confused. Other researchers looked scared. But Yunji remained calm. She had prepared for this moment for months. Her small workstation continued humming softly. The AI assistant processed data. Operation complete, it said. Nobody noticed the human girl. Until it was too late. End of part 6. The silence was worse than any explosion. Across the galaxy, massive research centers and military command stations tried to understand what had happened. Screens showed nothing. Communication systems remained dead. Entire technological networks had simply stopped working. In the main research complex, chaos erupted. Krellvax stood in the central command room, his scale-covered body changing colors rapidly, a sign of extreme stress for his species. Other senior researchers gathered around emergency communication panels. Nothing worked. How is this possible? One researcher asked. Her tentacles moved nervously across broken control systems. A crystalline being from the research team tried to restart a main communication network. Its geometric body glowed with effort. But nothing happened. The most advanced technological systems in the galaxy had become useless. Yunji sat quietly in her small work area. Her data pad continued running calculations. Her personal AI assistant processed information silently. Investigators began their work. The best minds from multiple alien civilizations tried to trace the source of the technological shutdown. They looked for viruses. They searched for hidden attack systems. They checked every possible way someone could have caused such massive failure. But they found nothing. No traditional attack signatures, no obvious technological weapons, just a complete, precise shutdown of complex systems. Hours passed, then days. The crystalline Confederacy's massive battleships became nothing more than large metal objects floating in space. The Plasma Collective's advanced defense networks remained completely offline. Entire military operations had stopped. Yunji watched everything. She recorded everything. Her small workstation continued running background processes. The AI assistant collected data from multiple sources. Most would see random information. She saw a complete picture. Investigation status. The AI said softly. 99.2% tracked. Nobody paid attention to the human girl in the corner. Researchers ran back and forth. Military commanders looked confused. Senior scientists tried to understand the impossible technological failure. But Yunji knew exactly what had happened. She had found the hidden weaknesses in the most advanced technological systems, not through brute force, not through traditional attacks, but through careful, precise understanding of how complex networks connected. Her months of research had paid off. Every tiny vulnerability she had mapped, every small weakness she had discovered, they all came together in one perfect moment. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had been stopped, not by weapons, not by traditional warfare, but by understanding technology better than anyone else. Krelvax walked past her workstation. He looked worried, confused. He still did not understand what had happened. Yunji continued working. Her fingers moved across her keyboard. More data, more analysis. The research complex remained in chaos. Investigators continued their work. Military commanders tried to understand the impossible. But nobody noticed the human girl. Not yet. End of part 7. The investigation lasted weeks. The best minds in the galaxy worked day and night. Teams of researchers from 100 different planets tried to understand what had happened. They used the most advanced analysis tools. They brought in the smartest experts. They checked every possible way someone could have caused such a massive technological failure. But they found nothing. No attack signatures, no hidden viruses, no traditional weapons, just a complete, precise shutdown of the most advanced technological systems in known space. Yunji continued working in her small research station. Her workstation looked the same as always. Simple, ordinary, nothing special. Her personal AI assistant continued collecting data, processing information, building complex models that no one else could understand. Analysis complete, the AI said softly. In the main research complex, things had changed. The usual calm was gone. Researchers moved differently. They talked in worried whispers. Something big had happened. Something nobody could explain. Krelvax spent most of his time in emergency meetings. His scale-covered body changed colors constantly, a sign of extreme stress for his species. Other senior researchers looked worried, confused. The Crystalline Confederacy's military was completely disabled. Massive battleships that should have been powerful weapons now drifted like dead metal boxes in space. The Plasma Collective's defense networks remained offline. Entire galactic communication systems had stopped working. No one could talk between star systems. No one could send messages. It was like someone had cut all the technological connections at the same time. But not in a way that looked planned. Not in a way that seemed like an attack. Just a complete, precise technological failure. Investigators tried everything. They used the most advanced scanning systems. They brought in experts from every known civilization. They checked every possible technological pathway. Nothing made sense. Yunji kept her work simple. She continued collecting data. She continued running her analyses. Her small workstation looked the same as always. Nothing special. Nothing unusual. Her AI assistant continued working, processing information faster than any normal computer could, building complex models that showed how technological systems connected. In the research complex, rumors started to spread. Some said it was a massive attack. Some said it was a natural technological failure. Some said it was something nobody could understand. But nobody looked at the human girl in the corner. Krelvax walked past her workstation multiple times. He never stopped, never looked closely. She was just another junior researcher, just another human doing routine work. Days passed, then weeks. The galaxy remained changed. Entire military systems were offline. Communication networks remained dead. Advanced technological systems had simply stopped working, and nobody could explain why. Yunji continued working. Her fingers moved across her keyboard. More data, more analysis. Her small workstation continued humming softly. Nobody noticed the human girl. Not yet. End of part 8. 1 month after the technological shutdown, everything changed. The galaxy looked different. Powerful civilizations that once controlled entire star systems now struggled to communicate. Military powers that seemed unbreakable had become vulnerable. Advanced technological networks remained offline. In the research complex, something shifted. Humans were no longer seen as simple, unimportant researchers. Something had happened. Something nobody could explain. Yunji continued working. Her small workstation remained in the same corner. Nothing special. Nothing unusual. Senior researchers began to look at humans differently. Whispers spread through research stations. Conversations changed. People asked questions about human potential. How could this happen? Researchers asked. How could such advanced systems fail? Nobody had answers. Krillvax called an emergency meeting. Researchers from multiple species gathered. The main conference room felt tense. Something big had changed in the galaxy. We must understand what happened, Krillvax said. His scale-covered body shifted colors. A sign of deep worry. Investigators had found nothing. No traditional attack signatures. No hidden viruses. No obvious technological weapons. Just a complete, precise shutdown of the most advanced systems in known space. Yunji sat in the back of the conference room. She looked ordinary. Simple. Nothing special. Her personal AI assistant continued collecting data, processing information, building complex models that nobody else could understand. Final analysis complete, the AI said softly. The meeting continued. Researchers talked about vulnerability, about how technological systems could fail, about how some small weakness could bring down entire networks. Nobody looked at the human girl. But things were different now. Humans were no longer seen as unimportant, no longer seen as simple researchers. Something had changed in how the galaxy understood technology. Yunji's work had shown something important. Technology was not unbreakable. Complex systems had hidden weaknesses. One person could make a big difference. Her months of careful research had paid off. Every tiny vulnerability she had mapped, every small weakness she had discovered, they all came together in one perfect moment. The most powerful civilizations in the galaxy had been stopped, not by weapons, not by traditional warfare, but by understanding technology better than anyone else. Outside the research complex, entire star systems remained changed. Military powers that once seemed unstoppable now looked weak. Communication networks remained offline. The galaxy would never be the same. Krillvax walked past Yunji's workstation. This time, he looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, he saw something different. Yunji continued working. Her fingers moved across her keyboard. More data, more analysis. Her small workstation continued humming softly. Some say it was just a rumor. Others claim it was the first true demonstration of human potential in the galactic arena. But those who knew Yunji Park, those who truly understood her, they knew the truth. No one had noticed the human girl until it was too late. End of part 9.